Hello and welcome to your Week 14 Fantasy Football Rundown. I'm your host, Jet.
And I'm Avi. With the upcoming Fantasy Football Playoffs, we have a special episode for you.
Today, we're taking our listeners' most asked questions and answering them live on the air.
Yep. Starting with, one of our viewers asked, should he start Garrett Wilson against the Miami Dolphins or Khalil Shakir against the Rams? Personally, Garrett Wilson has had a couple down weeks in a row, but with a not great Dolphins pass defense, I do think Garrett Wilson has proved to get a big target share when a lot is on the line. Aaron Rodgers trying to save his job right now, so I do believe that the Jets will have a bounce-back game. And with all the receiving options that Josh Allen has to throw to, I just don't think that Khalil Shakir is a viable option this week.
I'm going to take Khalil Shakir. He's been really consistent lately, and Garrett Wilson, he's had 3 weeks under 10 points in a row. The Dolphins' secondary is really good against wide receivers. He might get blanketed by Jalen Ramsey. Who knows? He'll probably be alternating between Wilson and Adams. But Aaron Rodgers, he's just not consistent. He's not the threat he used to be. But Shakir has been getting consistent usage, volume, target share. And I mean, he's just a really intriguing option to start at that wide receiver 2 flex area, given his consistency.
Yeah, I like Garrett Wilson this week.
Next up, another one of our listeners asked, should he start DJ Moore or Jawan Jennings? They play each other.
Jawan Jennings, I'm going to take Jawan Jennings this week, although the Niners coming off of 2 tough road losses and 3 losses in a row for, I guess, the second time in the last 2 years. I do think Brock Purdy and the 49ers are going to look to bounce back. And Jawan Jennings, as of recent, has looked to be wide receiver 1, even with the limited pass game as of recent. But I'm not loving Caleb Williams' pass game, and DJ Moore is a long ball receiver. So I'm not loving the downside on DJ Moore.
I mean, we've really seen Caleb Williams come into his own the past few weeks. He's been a lot better as the season's progressed. DJ Moore leads all wide receivers in snaps played. He's going to be on the field, and he should get a decent amount of targets. When the ball's not going to Keenan Allen or the occasional Rome Odunze, it's going to DJ Moore, and he's his 1A guy. And I think he still has that big play threat that he's so well known for. And because of that, I'm taking Moore over Jennings, who is a little more boomer bust, although he has been decently consistent this year.
Yep. Going on to the third question, we have, do I start Elijah Moore against the Steelers or Cedric Tillman against the Steelers? I'm going to take Elijah Moore. Cedric Tillman, I haven't loved his target share as of recent with, I guess, the surgence of Jerry Jeudy, but I do think Elijah Moore has been a safer target in kind of the mid-range, and I do like what I've seen from him when the ball is thrown to him, and so I don't love the Cedric Tillman downside that we have seen as of recent, so I'm going to take Elijah Moore.
I'm also going to take Elijah Moore. Both receivers, it's important to note, are questionable heading into the matchup, so if one's ruled out and one plays, well, there's your decision. But Tillman got concussed a couple weeks ago, missed last week. I don't know if he'll be 100%. I mean, he's been missing practices, and the 2 weeks prior, he got, I think, a combined total of 6 or 7 points. Although he did have a good first week or two when Jameis took over at quarterback. But Elijah Moore, on the other hand, has gotten, I think, 16 plus in 3 of his last 5 games. So I like Elijah Moore against a pretty tough Pittsburgh defense, assuming both are healthy.
Yep, and that's it for the start or bench type of questions. And moving on to an interesting one, which is trade for the Cardinals defense. Do I trade for the Cardinals defense, or did they?
It's an intriguing question. I mean, the Cardinals defense, you would hear that question and think, why would you trade for a defense? Just add a defense every week, which is what I do. But trading for the Cardinals defense makes sense. If you've got playoffs like ours that go week 14, 15, 16, it it's a viable option because the Cardinals week 14, 15, 16 schedule, they've got the Seahawks, who are a solid offense, but against fantasy defenses, they tend to do well because of all of the turnovers and whatnot. And then they've got the Patriots, and then they've got the Panthers. So that's a really favorable schedule, and the Cardinals' defense is a pretty solid unit this year. So that makes it very intriguing for me. I think if you could give up like the best player on your bench that you don't think you'll need.
Yeah. Agreed. I think if you don't really have a lot of other things on your plate as far as like necessities in the next couple of weeks in fantasy football, I do think it's a good time to get a defense that you don't have to worry about for the next couple of weeks. I mean, it's a really dead Patriots offense that they're running against, even with Drake May. Sorry, not dead. A really just subpar Patriots and Panthers offense. They have been better, but as far as schedules go, the Cardinals kind of have the easiest. So if you don't have a lot of other stuff to worry about in fantasy football, I do think the Cardinals defense is a good move.
Right, like if all of your skill positions are thoroughly taken care of, take one of those bench guys that, you know, he's a good player, but you're not really going to use him like a Nick Chubb-esque type guy, and say, here, I want your defense. And most likely the other manager will be like, I mean, yeah, I'm getting a decent player for a defense. So I think that's definitely something to look out for if your trade deadline hasn't passed yet.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to our final question. Is it time to drop Amari Cooper? Now, this is a painful one as I have rostered Amari Cooper, and I've started him, I think, twice this entire season. But Amari Cooper, I mean, in a Bills offense that hasn't really involved him that much since his first week with the Bills and his touchdown. I mean, he's gotten maybe 3-4 targets per game, something like 2 receptions for 40 yards, and so I just don't think he's a viable option anymore. I don't think he even deserves a bench spot, and so I do think, although he is a big name, but he's getting old, I think it's time to drop Amari Cooper.
Yeah, although Amari's he's a good player, he's aging, and there's so many weapons in this Bills offense. He's not going to be that consistent wide receiver one some people were hoping he would turn into for Josh Allen. As I said, I think from the start of the trade, Amari's going to be more of a wide receiver two, just veteran presence, get a couple catches a game. He's not going to be Allen's go-to guy. Mm-hmm. And he's just inconsistent. He doesn't have a huge ceiling. I don't think he's really rosterable anymore. If you ask me, it's time to look to the waiver wire for players like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, those are two guys that huge deep threats huge deep threats for their quarterbacks, Levis and Carr. That, I mean, their upside is just, it's crazy. And then they both scored 4 touchdowns in their last 3 games. So they're getting targets, and not just like possession targets. They're getting deep ball targets, and they're cashing in on them.
Yeah, and it's not like they're like inconsistent deep threats like guys like Xavier Worthy who aren't really startable. They're getting consistent targets, and they're not like getting 5 targets one game, 1 target in another game. They're both getting at least like 4 targets a game, and they're the guy that they go to when the quarterback has time in the pocket. And so I just think that with guys like Amari Cooper also being a deep threat, guys like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Marquez Valdez-Scantling have both been huge targets near the red zone and looking deep. So I think they're great pickups.
Yeah, they're like Alec Pierce on steroids, basically, or just consistent Alec Pierces. Because Alec Pierce, he can be great and he can be awful. It just depends if AR throws the ball far or not.
Yeah, and that'll be it for your Week 14 weekly rundown. I'm Avi.
And I'm your host, Jet, signing off.
Ball, ain't it? It's our ball! Hey! It's our ball! It's our ball! James is late.